My guest today brings rare experience, a direct comparison between leading at very different scales. John Yardley is Chief Executive of Coastline, a customer-owned bank on the mid-north coast of New South Wales. Before that, 23 years at Bank Australia, most recently as Deputy Chief Executive. As you'll hear John say, at a small bank, the clock ticks faster, the information is harder to find. But what's interesting is what doesn't change. I'm John Critchley, and this is From the Helm with Polaris. Hi, John. Thanks for making time to join us. Looking forward to a very interesting episode. We discuss matters related to decision making and the factors of size and so on, and tap into your experience. So thank you very much for making your time available to us.
Oh, you're welcome, John. It's a pleasure. I'm really looking forward to the discussion.
So am I. So John, your background, everyone will know this. Been at Bank Australia for many, many years, and saw it go through its transition. A lot of opportunity for you to see a lot of the decision making that goes on there, and it's witness to the quality of the team and you and the rest of the team's decision making, how it's managed to progress itself very well. Now you're a CEO, you're in the front seat at Coastline. What we'd like to do is explore with you what that transition means in terms of decision making, your observations. So when you arrived at Coastline, what did you see about decisions and how they get made that are distinct versus what you saw in your experience at Bank Australia?
The first thing is that they get made, it felt a lot more quickly. At Bank Australia, clearly we had large teams. There was a large number of stakeholders. There were subject matter experts. So I'm talking largely about decisions that are significant, perhaps strategic, important decisions, major projects, those sorts of things. There was a large group of people that could be brought into the tent to help refine the decision or to help to get to a better place. And I've always thought that, on my own mind, I might get to 60 or 70% in terms of the confidence around whatever the decision was. And then bringing in all those other people and all that other experience that you largely had internally just meant that the outcomes or the decision or the confidence around the decision got better and better. And that's not so much the case at Coastline Bank. I think it's also about time. At Bank Australia, there was we had a strong strategy, strong sense of what was going on. The business was performing strongly. And Coastline business is, but Coastline's not a bank where we can take, 18 months or 2 years to figure out what we're going to do. We need to be quite nimble and quite quick and get things going quickly and see those green shoots early. So the time thing's been interesting as well. I feel like the clock's ticking a lot faster at Coastline Bank than it did at Bank Australia, which has been really, really interesting.
I see. So the frame for which the decisions are on the impact of decisions is narrower. The pace of decision making, and then there's a quality aspect as well, because you're able to refine it against a larger pool of resources. It's not quality of individuals, it's basically being able to pull a diverse thinking. That's the distinction. How does that affect you in your seat, as the CEO? What do you see around what it means for you?
Yeah, it felt a lot lonelier. And there's another piece to it, just before I get into that. Most of the people I'm working now at Coastline Bank have been in a bank that's gone from very small to still quite small, around $1 billion in assets. And there's not a lack of capability, but there's a level of expertise that perhaps hasn't been developed when you're part of a bank that's gone, when I started at Bank Australia, from $1 billion to 20-something billion plus. So that's a factor as well. The thing I've figured out pretty quickly in terms of making decisions is that I need to think more than just about more than just the team that might be immediately available when considering things, and tapping the experience of the board in a way that perhaps we didn't so much at Bank Australia. So I'm having more conversations with directors who, have good quality experience and good judgment, and bringing them into the tent, into some of the operational decision making that we're making, because they're going to have an opinion. They're going to have a view that's going to be useful. And perhaps did that less at Bank Australia, where it was a more traditional governance model. Tapping people externally, I worked very hard. I figured out I needed to work very hard, very quickly to continue to build the network of people, contractors, consultants, just people I can pick up the phone and talk to about stuff. And I have been very pleased on the mid-north coast, which is where we focus, where we operate. There are people that live here or have migrated here that have some amazing skills and experience. So building those networks and finding those people, again, to try and improve the quality of decisions that we're taking.
Sounds like COVID might have been a positive factor there.
Yes, perhaps. There's certainly a lot of people who have come from elsewhere to live here. So I'm living in Port Macquarie. Headquarters is in Kempsey. There are a lot of people that have had quite significant careers. An example, developing a marketing strategy. Still in the market for a head of marketing, by the way. Couldn't find them, but needed to get on with the strategy piece. So found someone locally that had a very, very large, corporate career in strategy and marketing at McDonald's in Australia and globally, and now lived locally, and was delighted to give back. And a great story, their grandfather was customer number 2 at Coastline Bank. So they were sitting around the table when the organisation was formed. So being able to find those people and get out there and network's been really important as well.
What does this mean in terms of this narrower palette, as it were, for decision making? And at Coastline, when you're trying to work out which problem needs to be solved, what's available to you and what isn't is basically the big question. And you just touched on it very briefly there. It's a matter of really pulling on that resources, and you got the network aspect to it. What does that change about how you get to the decision? Because obviously you're no longer able to just shoot off a corporate email and get the resources to come in with a meeting internally and so on at the snap of our fingers. It's kind of like teasing out the resources that have got the knowledge that you may not be aware of initially. How does it affect your decision-making process?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting thing. I've certainly spent some time understanding the backgrounds, and literally I've gone through the resumes of every single employee at Coastline Bank, trying to find people that may have had experience and have had different roles to the one that they currently have. And like many organisations, you find those, the diamonds, the people that have had potentially larger careers or different careers, or have experience you may not have realised. So worked hard on that, and being willing as well. And it's one of the things that everyone in small banks know. We've got people that are often required to swim in more than one lane, and so being willing to pull people into the decision-making process, even though it might not be their job, and because they've got something that's valuable and something that we can look at. So again, it's been about finding the people within the organisation who actually know stuff or have access to data, and often it's through, queries through Microsoft Excel, and it might be me sending out an email from time to time to the whole bank. Does anyone know this?
Yeah.
I'm looking for this piece of information that I think is going to support our decision making. So certainly having to hustle around trying to find those nuggets of information and the experience that that we might have has been important. But I think with decision making of any kind, you can spend a long time trying to go from 80% to 90%. So you can spend a lifetime's work. For me, it feels like more. I could spend an awful long time going from 70 to 80. So I think there is a confidence thing that comes from having experience. But it does make me nervous as well. I think I might be stealing these words from you, John, that, it's a lot easier to capsize a dinghy than it is a ship. I think that was something you said to me, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Yeah. And so I'm very conscious of that. And I've had conversations with the board in particular. We just did a big strategy reset, and there was some good analysis that went on. As I said, we used some external people to assist with that as well. but I don't feel I've got to the level of confidence that I might have if we were sitting at Bank Australia. So there's the way I'm talking about the board to this is that we need to have some courage. With any change, things might get worse before they get better. But also, we need to be really honest with each other about what's going well and what's not when we're implementing those decisions, because we might need to pivot quite quickly, so we might have got it wrong.
What is that? So that's interesting there. You talked about the information or the decision confidence gap, right?
Yeah.
Now you also at tension with that mentioned earlier about the 80 to 90% asymptotic return on investment, right? So what is how do you know when you've got that optimized decision point?
I think when I've been in retail banking for 25 years at an executive level, I probably started out getting 6 or 7 out of 10 decisions right. Maybe I've got better over time. So again, I'm talking about that, relying on experience, relying on gut feel, informed by experience, and the best information that you can find. Is largely what it's been about. As well, though, the board have played an important role. I've got a good quality board. I think it's for a small customer-owned bank. There's a real premium on that. There's a real premium on it, and we've got a very high-quality board. So I trust their judgment as well, and they've been very useful in helping me to, refine some things and to push back.
Yeah.
So you might have got this. How about this?
Mhm.
Did you think about it in this way?
And you were also mentioning earlier that you have some potentially hidden talent as well, and it's a matter of just getting almost digging deeper into the latency that there is already inherent within an organization and pulling it out and correct and harnessing it. Maybe just walk through, how you do that and add that to your palette.
Yeah, it's look, it started out by obviously talking to people. So we've got 75 people in the bank and meeting everyone and storing away, that 2 by 2 quadrant as I went around, who might be in the upper right, that high performance, high potential. And, not just those people, because the people that offer good things that aren't. So having that initial look around and then checking my views around people and their potential with other people. And then, as I said, I initially started with sort of 10 or 15 people that I thought were had something could offer something more than just what they were doing in their day-to-day job. I don't mean that in a critical or negative way, but just and then having a deeper look at them. So asking to see their the resumes. There's a few where we couldn't find them because they're very, very long-term employees. We've got employees that have been with the bank for 34, 35 years. And then just going out and having coffee with people. So going into them, what is your experience? I noted that, you used to be a lending manager at, ABC Credit Union or customer-owned bank. Are you interested in getting involved in different things? Do you have some opinions? Can you give me some feedback? And I think it's not just unique to small customer-owned banks. I think it's also about perhaps a bit of a regional thing. And I was used to this at Bank Australia because we had large regional operations, that when you give people permission to participate, to talk and give you feedback, it's amazing what it just really, really is. So that's been a delight. And I was pretty confident coming in with the sorts of performance that for such a small bank, Coastline's been driving, that there would be, those people there, but just needed to find them.
And what I find as well, and I'm sure it's something that you reflect on as well in your experience, is that when you pick out the few people who have got the fire in the belly, right, and you lift them to the point where they can actually perform transparently in their context, the others fall in behind, and the whole organization lifts as a consequence.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But people notice, right? People notice. People notice that this is new, this is different, this is part of the change. This is someone, or this is now a leadership team that are really interested in what we can offer and contribute. So it's very positive for the for the culture. One of the things we have stood up is a series of champions teams. ALI is very topical, for example, and I think everyone's trying to. And by the way, as a this is a direct comparison from big to small. I used to be able to go into meetings and go blah, 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 and then people would go away and make it happen. Not quite that easily. You know what I mean? I don't mean to sound arrogant. Whereas now I'm on the tools a lot more. So I'm spread far wider. I'm involved in a lot more and having to do a lot of things myself. So AI has been really useful. Is the message there? But for AI as an example, how can we build use cases? What can we start with? What can we do? So setting up a champions team. So identified again someone who I thought had real aptitude in that space. Asked them to then go and find other people they thought that might have aptitude or had business knowledge that, and put them together as a team. And so we're starting to figure out, 6 or 7 things that we might do using AI, putting another person through some, quite advanced training around AI tools as well, who's going to supplement that team and provide that specialist advice. So just getting creative around how you use people, and people just are really delighted to be involved.
Yeah,
they really are. And fantastic.
that was a lovely little track, because I think that what that does demonstrates that actually there's that palette, and then when you get to a smaller scale, you lean more heavily on people more broadly within the organization. And the trick, if I'm hearing it right, is that you may well have latent capability to really lean on that can actually really improve the quality of your decision making.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that it's been effective. Where it's been really effective as well, John, is when I've then looped people like you, people who are available to come in and help out with specific tasks. And I've done that a couple of times. And so connecting those people with those people as well has made it really powerful. So, for example, around the development of the marketing plan, there was a small internal team, the marketing plan and strategy, a small internal team. And then, as I said before, supplemented them with someone from outside, and, off they went, and did a fantastic job. And it was just one less thing that I had to, be involved in, because I had the confidence I have got the right people that are going to get us to a really good place, and then we can refine from there.
And that's that complementarity again, not defaulting to the corporate advisor sort of model. It's about, well, what have we already got in the house, and then just taking a buffet approach to bringing in what you need.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, a buffet approach. Yes, yes. So I'm working really hard, as I said, to develop those. Those kind of, you already had them, obviously, and when you work in customer banking, a lot of people who understand that we're doing interesting work, but there's a limit to what we can afford, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's
Not
right.
an option for me to go to the KPMGs and EYs of the world. But that's not to say there's not all kinds of very, very capable and smart people who can help us, and that's been a delight. The other thing as well, being around for a long time, customer-owned banking, is we're fantastic collaborators, and it's an amazing thing about our segment of the banking industry. So I have made some visits to colleague banks and leaned on them pretty hard. Bank Australia have been very generous. I'm always a fan of don't reinvent, plagiarise where possible. And so having some larger banks like that are willing to help out, there's been others, and provide policies, framework. So I came into an organisation that didn't have a particularly well-defined project governance, project management framework, and being able to pick that up from somewhere else rather than have to start from scratch was just, that was fantastic. But also, as I said before, when it comes to that decision-making piece, having people that I've known for many years and that I can trust, that, even if I'm just having a crisis of confidence, you can give them a call, walk them through, and, they've been there, right?
Absolutely.
They've been there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's something that I really admire about the sector, is the camaraderie. It's accepting that my customer might go to you at some point in the future, depending on the right thing. But actually, you know what? We're here for the member interests, and that's at the core. And that sharing just doesn't stop. So I think that's one of the things I find very admirable about the sector.
It is. The reality is we're largely competing against the majors anyway. So
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So, thinking about the decisions, and the decision-making process. We talked about how you get to the point of decision. There's research that suggests that roughly half of consequential organizational decisions fail. I'm not sure if you would reflect back on your experiences and think, that resonates or not, but it doesn't fail not because of the execution. It's because the problem
Mm.
was misdiagnosed before anyone had actually started the commitment to it.
Yeah.
Um, at Coastline scale, where the wrong bet could cost more than just the money that's been spent.
Yeah.
How do you go about decision making and making sure that that's the right quality that you've got there? I know we talked about some elements of that already, but I'm talking about the actual point of decision.
Yeah, yeah, so defining, you mean in terms of defining the actual problem or defining
That's
the
right.
opportunity,
That's right.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a trick, eh? And certainly, it's that old thing where, you want to be doing this so you can do that, right? And get
Yes.
to the place in a linear way. And um, uh, I have, again, going back to that time thing, I have felt a bit of pressure around, I haven't got a lot of time to be doing this endlessly before we move to there. And there may be some things where we then have to do more of that detailed stuff later, and that's absolutely not ideal. Example for us has been rollout of our new loan origination system, where one, we didn't clean up existing processes, policies, and things before we started. We just went straight to the technology, and two, we didn't really define what we wanted as well as we needed to, and it's meant that we've obviously had issues down the line, and it's not a criticism. It's just that we didn't know what we didn't know in some ways, limited resources, those sorts of things. I look back at that now, and that was a situation where we should have lent more heavily on external expertise to avoid that. So I think it's probably that trick of knowing when do you need help to get better problem or opportunity definition, and when not to.
What you're exploring there is sort of like the quality of the actual decision. I mean, that's one thing. Then there's obviously, which problem should we be solving given our limited resources as well. You
Yeah,
know, because one of our thesis points is that, it's all very well saying that solving the wrong problem is not such a good idea. It's expensive in our terms, but it's also a matter of it can be expensive if you solve too many of the right problems. Because none of them get done anyway. So
right.
I think part of that is that the one aspect is around the quality, but also, and that's kind of like the diagnostic piece around are we solving the right problem, but also are we
Yeah.
solving too many problems? I guess, and the other question, which goes to the heart of
Yeah.
cutting off things. What's your reflection on that?
We can't solve too many problems, Josh.
Yes.
We just can't. We just can't. In terms of you know even medium-sized and complexity projects, but we're probably only managing a couple of those at a time, um, or initiatives. We've got to be very, very careful. So there does need to be ruthless prioritization. One of the things I did do and work with the team and spent quite some time on early on was maturity analysis stuff. So where are we and where do we think we need to be? And then through 5 or 6 buckets, and then looking at the couple of buckets where we thought there was the most potential to achieve what we knew that we wanted to achieve. And what we're trying to achieve is, revenue or growth, revenue uplift. Costs are increasing. We just need to do that if we're going to remain sustainable, not just sustainable, but vigorous and fun and enjoyable as well, and be able to do stuff on an ongoing basis. And then the second thing is, we want to get some operational efficiency, so that as we're growing, we're not just continually having to increase fixed costs, bring more people to do those sorts of things. And there's lots of opportunity there without even going near technology. So those were I guess the 2 buckets, that we decided to focus on. So that's the exercise of where are we at. And there were things which I've just taken a pass on. We've taken a pass on. So looked at culture, for example. What's our current state? What's our perfect state? And are we good enough? Here we are. So we're going to put that to one side for a period of time. So that initial screen made it easier because there were things that we just decided we were going to put in the parking lot. Here's the 2 buckets to concentrate on. Obviously, within those buckets, though, then there's a mountain of things that you can do. Continuing to be focused on the mid-north coast. That's where we operate. That's where we're going to continue to operate. That makes things a bit easier because we've got customer intimacy. We know what they're about. We know what they want. We know what things have typically worked in the past. Not to say that's any guarantee in the future. So that's been quite useful. So yeah, just I don't have an easy answer to how.
That's okay. It is hard.
How
It is
you make
absolutely
sure
hard.
that you
But it's interesting to hear your.
right?
It is. It's. I think it's really instructive though to hear your views on things around how hard it really is. Um,
Yep.
and another thing that I'd observe from the outside. Now, I'm not a mutual bank. I serve mutual banks, but I'm not in the mutual banks, as it were. Um, eh, but an observation is the consensus culture of the sector, which is natural, right? It's a social goodness, right? But it has consensus at its heart in decision making, and with that comes a plethora of pros and cons on a social matrix, right?
Yep.
Around prioritization. It's not just a matter of what looks good on the balance sheet. Um,
Yep.
how do we fix the inefficient? How do we make sure that that squares up with the inefficiencies as an apparent inefficiency in the sector versus
Yes.
making sure we still fulfill our social charter?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and I've been involved in grappling with that at Bank Australia and at Coastline Bank. As you change, how do you stay pure to or honest to who you are and what you're about and what you're trying to achieve? I think at its basic, it's about how you frame decisions. And so we're a customer-owned bank. We exist for the benefit of our customers. When we're making decisions, is this in the best interest of our customers? Is this the right thing to be by them? Is this ethical, given that I think the customer banking overlay also has a values piece attached to it? So keeping that firmly in mind and then moving through perhaps the more commercial considerations, is really important. Sometimes there's tension. There's things that you might need to do. And a simple example is pricing, John. Huh? We're making pricing decisions in a competitive market. I like to give everyone the best price on the day, but that's just not commercially realistic. Because you've got to grow and you've got to have specials, and you know what I'm talking about. One of the things I know about both the culture at the Bank Australia and the culture at Coastline Bank is that by and large, people are there for the right reason, and they understand the values, and they understand every day when they're walking through the door why we're all here and what we're trying to achieve. So having that clarity is just a gift. And we've all worked in places where you walk through the door and you're like, yeah, it's just about making money, or what's
Yeah.
going on here?
Yes.
Why are we all here?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So having that light on the hill, that is grounded in the customer. We've got the goal now to be the best bank on the mid-north coast, so that helps as well in terms of driving the culture. Because I think that if the story of if you get too captured by only thinking about customers, their needs and what they want. I mean, if you ask them, they'd say, we don't want to pay fees. We want the best rates. We want all those things. You can't do all those things. So again, it's that tension to commercial reality. So having that other big goal that we're trying to achieve that does have aspects that are around efficiency and commercials and growth, and as well as what's in it for our customers has been important too. I'm not sure if I think I might have got off track there a bit.
No, not at all. I tell you what was popping in my head then as you were going through that just now was what Henry Ford said. If we'd listened to our customers, we would have built carriages with more horses, right? I think it's a matter of actually doing a balance between observation and also listening to customers. Like, yes, you do need to listen to customers. Obviously, the first point of question that Henry Ford would have had was, I want to get from A to B faster. Yeah, okay, there's a need. The question is how, right? And that's the bit where actually you don't ask the customer to shape the solution. You actually use your own intellect and capabilities to work out what the best solution might look like. So I think that was an interesting thing about what you just said there. And that falls into nicely around the decision-making process. So where does your strategy go? Well, it has to follow some form of ambition, and you outlined that. I think that leads nicely into what I've called the signature question for this series, which is drum
Yeah.
roll. How do you think about measuring success?
There's the things that are in the strategy. So we've done a strategy reset, and there's a balanced scorecard in there, and it is a genuinely balanced scorecard. It's got customer elements, it's got growth elements, it's got the financial metrics that you'd expect to see, and I suspect it's a scorecard that's very similar to what you'd see in many banks, both customer owned and otherwise. So that's important. Understanding that, and within that balanced scorecard, there are things that are big, hairy goals. So we want to get to 50% unaided brand awareness on the mid north coast. We're not there. We're not even close to being there, and that's the sort of brand awareness that a major bank would be driving. But 100% of pots don't, reach the hole, don't go in. So there's some stuff that's about big goals, and there's some stuff that's just about things we need to achieve to make sure that we're sustainable and viable. On my mind, around success is that customer piece. Do our customers trust us? Do they like us? Our NPS hovers around 80%, so we're answering that, and it's I didn't believe this coming in, John. I shouldn't say that, but I was a bit dubious about that coming in, because you see NPS measured in all sorts of interesting ways, and we've had some discussions about that.
Yeah.
But in terms of how you measure pure NPS, it's been done in the right way. So there's a lot of indications we're doing what we need to for customer, and then there's the success around: are we on a path that means that we're not just going to be good for the next 1 year or 1 or 2 years. Are we going to be good for the next 3, 4, 5, and have a viable future? And again, coming in and with a not an aggressive change agenda, but certainly a significant change agenda, and with support from the board. I said before that some things are going to get worse before they get better. Our cost to income is not going to be quite as stellar as it has been for the next year or two. So are we confident we're on that right path? And then the other thing for me is something I said before: is I don't just want to turn up to work and for us all to flog ourselves to just to be okay. Is it fun? Are we doing something interesting and special? And is it vigorous? And does it excite us? And in 5 years' time, when we're looking back, are we going to think, gee, that was awesome. We did something cool. So that's really important to me in terms of that success piece as well, John.
That last one is always, I think, one of the ones that gets missed out, but is so important. Is when we talk about impact, too often we talk about it in loose terms of, well, what does that mean? Well, we've got so many customers, or we've got so many loans out there, or our book is growing by X, Y, and Z. Well, yeah, okay, those are, measures of the scale of your organization. What's the genuine impact? And I think impact is beyond that. It has more to do with, the genuine needs around feeling as if I am contributing something valuable to society. And I think that's what's so lovely about the mutual banking sector.
Yeah, it is. It really is. It gives it meaning, hey?
It does, and individuals within it meaning, and also warms people as well in the community. John, thank you very much for your insights. It's been a real pleasure to have you on the podcast from the Helm, literally. And I am looking forward to seeing how Coastline executes and thrives in the mid North Coast.
Thanks, John. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Not at all. Thank you.